Hi, I'm Ricky, and in this video we're going to talk about Beth. When I first met her, we went to go see Suicide Squad, and then we went out to dinner, and I told her my entire life story up until that point. Everything from my friend Tammy dying and nobody doing anything about it, to my incident in the Coast Guard and faking amnesia, to trying to commit suicide 6 times. It was ridiculous. And signing the rights away to my kids for no reason, and times when I felt I should have won. It was absolutely ridiculous, but I could never explain it. Her son at that time was stuck in a psych ward in New Hampshire. She was living with her daughter in Bondsville. Her husband had moved out. Things weren't well, so that's how we met. And she wanted me to meet her son right away. She told me about how he was abused at a group home, so he couldn't live at home anymore. She tried, but it was just too much. It was just overwhelming. And as much as she cared, she had to admit she couldn't do it on her own. And she didn't get any help from the state. They gave her like 20 hours a week. I've worked with the disabled before, so I know they treat disabled people like trash. And even though they have lots of money and say money's no object, whenever it comes time to spend it on realistic things, all of a sudden it's not there and there's excuses. So I figured, she seemed like a really nice person. She was, very emotional, but who wouldn't be, who had a autistic son who'd been abused and is no longer living at home and stuck in a psych ward that's 2 hours away. So things moved pretty fast. I think the next day we went out and spent the whole day together talking about nonsense, just driving around Western Mass. So she wanted me to meet her son. I don't know if it was that weekend or the next weekend, but I met him. And even though everyone made him out to be a monster and she said he had a lot of problems, I could tell that even though he was drugged beyond belief, like those doctors went out of their way to give him a PRN every time they could give it to him so that he couldn't function. But I could see the light in this kid's eyes. And I knew I could help, so I decided there that yes, I'm going to be a part of this. I can help this kid. Even if our relationship doesn't work out, I know I can help this kid. Especially when she told me about the way that no one ever listens to her. They ignore her realistic concerns, because they always did. And we're going to find out in this entire story, it's disgusting. So from that point on, every other weekend, Beth and I would take the 2-hour drive there, 2-hour drive back to see her son. And the doctors were pompous asses. I'm gonna try not to swear in this, but they're such pompous, disgusting people. They don't care about any of those kids in the psych ward. And I've spent time in the psych ward, and they didn't care about me either. All they did was drug me up and made me so much worse. I would have never even signed the rights away to my kids if I wasn't drugged up like that, because I felt empty inside. So I know what this kid is going through. I had to fight with them. They treated her like trash. I fought with them to get him to go outside to use the swings. Like, oh no, he's a monster, he's gonna attack you, this and that. Such nonsense all the time from these people. It's disgusting. Like, no wonder Beth was always stressed out. I even brought my nephew up there, who I think he was like 8 or maybe 10 at the time. He was young, 10 years old. I wouldn't bring a 10-year-old to see a monster on these long 4-hour total trips. And you'd only get to hang out for like a half hour maybe. It was miserable. But when you care about someone, you find a way. The disgusting hospital filed reports against her and her husband for abandoning their son in the psych ward hours away, which was absolutely ridiculous. Like, just to harass these people, to stress them out. They purposely do this to stress people out, to hurt them. That's all that is. So I told her to ignore it. I'm like, no, don't listen to anything these people say, and then wait for the state to find appropriate housing for them. They were trying to stick them hours away in these horror show group homes. All you read is complaint after complaint of abuse and neglect. And they're all like that, so it's not, you just try to pick the better of the horrible places. So we waited it out, and she found Crystal Springs was agreed upon. And it looked like a beautiful place, all nice and pretty. Everybody pretended to be, a friend of the disabled. So I had hoped that Beth's, nerves would calm, but they didn't. The people there, all they did was lie to our faces. And I'll say our because I was a part of it. she had agreed, and her husband at the time had agreed, that I can have a voice, because nobody listened to them anyway, and I have a big mouth, and I love disabled people, and what a coincidence, I'm disabled too now, so, wonder if all these disabled people were just nice to me all these years, because they knew that, deep down I was really one of them. Like, you're one of us, man, protect us. Man, these people make me sick. They shook my hand and told me to my face many times, oh, we're going to bring them on home visits. And this place was like an hour and 45 minutes from where we lived. It was ridiculous. They were going to make all these positive improvements to his life. We're going to take him to the mall. We're going to do all these activities, take him swimming. I think they took him swimming a couple times, and the entire time he was there, it was absolutely ridiculous. They never took him to the mall. They lied about everything to our faces, and then they stuck him in the closet. I'm gonna try to slow the story down, because some of this stuff just, it sticks like deep inside me. I have memories like, But when we first started, he was scratching people and going at people. He was very upset and on a lot of medication. And I had none of that. I'm like, no, he's coming off all the medication. His mother wanted him off, but everyone else was saying no, he needed to be on them. So I was the lone voice that's like, no, she said no, the answer is no. Don't ever say anything again. I don't care what you say. Your opinion doesn't matter. The mother said no, so the answer is no. I had to be an ass all the time, and I loved it. I was such a pompous ass every single time. I love putting liars in their place. I love putting people that exaggerate and say, oh, we're going to do this, and then they never do it, in their place for lying. It's like one of my pet peeves. I can't get over it. It was disgusting. So many meetings had to be stopped. They said we'd sound aggressive. All they did was try to teach her son, thumbs up. Hey, look, Stefan, thumbs up, all the time. And then made him out to be a monster. So I got sick of it. I'm like, you know what, we're done. We're going to start taking them on ourselves. They're like, oh no, you need restraint training first. I've gone through restraint training. It's absolute trash. It's okay to use on certain people. But if you don't need to use it, you don't need to use it at all. Talk. Use your words. We're human beings. All of these kids understand English, and if you talk to them, they listen. Maybe they can't respond, or maybe you're not saying things in a way that they understand, but if you keep saying things, eventually you're going to get things across. The first couple times we took our son out, he was awesome. I think maybe the first or second time I had to yank him out of the car when we got back. He didn't want to leave. He wasn't misbehaving. He just wouldn't get out of the car. So when he wasn't looking, I just slid him out. He wasn't happy, but he didn't attack me. So I wanted to go home. I'm like, I'm on disability. I'm hurting. Oh my God. I would stay longer if I could, but I'm sorry, man. But I didn't take that against him, because I wouldn't want to leave either if I was hanging out with me. We took him to a flea market where there was hundreds of people. He behaved himself like beautifully. He never acted out in a way that was totally ridiculous. One time we were driving towards the place he was abused, hoping to take him to the zoo. He got all squirrely in the car, so we had to pull into a parking lot. He kept crawling through the SUV and out the back and acting all... It was all ridiculous, but he had a problem. And I didn't know they were driving towards that area, and he seemed upset about something. And it wasn't until I told him no more closet that he started to behave himself. Not to start to behave himself, but he looked ashamed. He didn't behave. He knew exactly what was going on. I have to reword some of the things I say. I'm just talking too fast and I get excited. But when he was upset in the car, flipping around, I told Beth to step back. I'm taking complete control of the situation. We're not going to yell at him. We're just going to talk to him. And he climbed in on that car a couple times, and it was only when he went towards the road that I would pull him back and tell him no. But up until that point, they were sticking him in the closet all the time. There's so much stuff I'm going to have to go over and redo these stories in the future, but every child that goes into these group homes, they come up with plans. So when something happens, you know what to do. And Stefan has auditory issues. He has headphones. But when happy kids start screaming, or unhappy kids, it doesn't matter why, it bothers him, and he'd like to leave the situation. And he was supposed to have staff to bring him out of these classrooms and down the hallway to walk away so he can be stress-free. But instead, they would stick him in a closet. And then they said he liked the closet, which is an absolute lie. No kids ever want to be stuck in the closet. I was stuck in the closet in 5th grade for the whole day, for weeks, and it was months. And I did so many ridiculous things in the closet, damaging stuff, gluing books together, because I had nothing better to do. Just stuck in a closet. Like, I'm surprised I never lost my mind. But I can see why I hate that closet now. So when the time came and the paperwork was supposed to be signed to put him back in the closet, we refused. And then when we were driving home, without swearing, Rich Mancini called Beth. It was on speakerphone and started threatening her to call an ambulance. I don't know if they did call the ambulance and they did send him to the ER, but they said they were going to keep doing it until she signed that paperwork. And then I got loud. I probably swore, but I'm like, I don't know who you're talking to, but this is never going to happen ever again. And then he act, oh, I didn't know you were on the phone. And I'm like, well, I don't care if you know who's on the phone. You're not going to put kids in the closet. Oh, he's acting out right now. I don't care if he's acting out. Deal with it. Talk to him. And then magically, he never had any behaviors and never needed to be put in the closet for that ever again. But how did that change? He just, oh, we're going to have to keep calling the ambulance and bring him to the ER. And then magically, he doesn't have any more behaviors like that. Like, he was just testing to see if I was lying about not putting him in the closet. And I'm not going to lie to kids like that just to get what I want. Oh, I need you to behave right now. Nothing's going to happen later. Just behave and get in the car and we'll go home. And then we're going to be stuck in the closet and lie. It was ridiculous there. And then COVID came and then they made it worse. And like all of this stressed Beth out beyond belief. Every single night she couldn't sleep. And then at some point her daughter moved out. So that made things worse. Her daughter was being independent and thought living with her dad would be better, but it wasn't in the end. But kids have to learn on their own. So a lot of the time that we spent with Stefan was just us and Stefan. We fought and fought to get him out of Crystal Springs, and then they moved him to KDC, a house in Uxbridge. It was slightly closer, but then the same ridiculous problems of abuse. We'd show up, there'd be holes punched in the wall, no explanation. Oh, one of the kids acts out, like you couldn't give us a heads up. Just let us know that there's damage going on in the house and these kids are getting squirrely and they're upset enough to punch the wall. And then there were scratches on our son's hand that were infected. You could tell it's like a week or more old, but there's infections that are not documented, so that had to get reported. So then KDC, they got their contract revoked and they moved over to a company, Amigo. And I feel like this is where like a lot of the real problems started. Especially, I got off of my thyroid medication. So this is probably a big problem for me. Because one of the people that started managing the house that Stefan was living in Uxbridge worked with him in the house that he was abused in before I met both Beth and Stefan. And then we showed up and Stefan had a handprint from a man squeezing his arm from having to yank him around. And then Stefan started jumping up and down in front of this person in a way I've never seen before. You could tell, like, he's acting out because he wants me to say something to this guy. And when I saw that handprint, I had a flashback and I had no idea at the time what was going on in my head and why I felt like somebody was punching me in the chest. So I walked up to the guy and I started asking questions. And he started telling me the most horrifying things I've ever heard in my entire life. This guy worked at Evergreen previously. The night Stefan was abused, people heard it. They knew what was going on. And then nobody did anything about it until after the fact. He said that they had to clean up the entire mess, the bloody urine and feces mess that happened because Stefan released his bowels after he was slapped across the face so hard that it blew his eardrum out and left a handprint on his face years ago. And I'm standing there in front of this guy like with tears in my eye, but I kept asking my questions like, no, well, what happened next? Well, what did you do? Like, why wasn't someone called? And he kept answering my questions. I probably looked terrifying, but I couldn't understand at that time, like what was going on until that court date, May 24th. Priests used to yank me around just like that in class because I could not sit still. They'd come and get me. Why can't you sit still? Why do you ask so many questions? Because you people have a lot of dumb answers or you don't have any answers. So it's sickening, man. Even as an adult, people give me crap. Why do you have so many questions? Well, why don't you have any answers? Why is every time I ask you a question, you change the subject or just say something that doesn't make any sense? So we had to file reports to get Stefan out of Uxbridge and out of Amigos care. Absolutely terrible. There was more incidents. I try to keep this video a little shorter in this aspect, but I'm hoping that this people see this and can do something about this, because I've tried doing stuff about the abuse and nothing. And my lawyers that I had wanted to cover this stuff up. So after Stefan left Uxbridge and Amigo, man, where'd he move? Southbridge? I can't remember the name of the company. Either way, it was horrible there too. There was more abuse. There was a client that lived there that liked to rip his clothes off and get violent and scream and slam things around when things didn't happen on time. But we weren't told about that before he moved in. The cleanliness in that house was absolutely disgusting. The bathroom upstairs looked like no one had ever cleaned it. The shower area was so disgusting. The filth on the wall was thick, beyond imagination. I carry stuff with me, like tools, and when they scraped it, it was disgusting. And then, nobody noticed this, but when my thyroid's off, my mind starts to change. Towards the end, when he was living in Southbridge, the company started lying and saying absolutely ridiculous things. Oh, we're going to start taking Stefan for walks. Because none of these companies like to take any of these kids for walks. They're always, oh, there's not enough people, or these kids don't want to go. But they told, oh, we're going to start taking Stefan for walks, and we're going to have 2 people. 2 people do it. And there's only 2 people in the house for 5 guys. So how do you have 5 people with 2 staff, but then you use 2 staff to take 1 person for a walk? And I didn't realize how badly that had affected me. And Beth had asked me to write an email complaining about it to a state worker we were talking with. Man, ugh. And also at the time I was talking to my son, being reminded of all these things in the past that totally just tore my mind apart. The Coast Guard, I couldn't understand how my body had fallen apart and how I couldn't explain it to anyone. All these highs in my life when I deal with a court, I should have won, but then somebody said something dumb. Just because you pay child support doesn't give you a right to see your kids. Every time I say that, it just, I feel like a little pain in my head, like, And when I'm sick, that stuff drives me mad. And I was doing that stuff right at the end. That same weekend, they had a new manager that was involved. And then they were trying to get rid of her because she was too good and she was on the company's ass about all their lies and all their false promises. And Beth was on my butt about the email that was taking me too long to write. And her daughter had just moved in. And I just did a ton of cleaning. And then the stupidity started. I went over to my mother's house, and just out of nowhere, she fell down and broke her wrist. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. I wanted to talk to you about stuff. I'm all stressed out. I go home that night, and then my father tells me, I don't want you to buy a car. I don't want the parking lot. I don't want the driveway looking like a parking lot. It boggled my mind too. Like, who says stuff like that? You know I'm disabled, and we live out in the middle of nowhere. Why wouldn't you want me to get a car? But then Beth didn't see that. She just thought that I was like being crabby and upset. That I was like mad at her, that this was her fault, which none of it was ever her fault. She never did anything for me that hurt me. If anything, if you see pictures of all the crap I had, like she allowed me to buy so many toys and have so much crap that in the end it was like a huge pain in the ass to move out. Like I don't ever want that much stuff again. Like, just all junk. So she had no idea what was going on with me and all these ridiculous things. And then the very same night, pain, just drives me nuts. After my father said that stuff, I was doing dishes and her daughter Olivia came downstairs and asked to use the sink. And I took it as like an attack. She's like, hey, can I use this? Hey, can I pour this out? It was just dirty water, and I just ran off onto the porch, went to have a smoke, and then tried to forget it. Then the next morning it all started. Beth got up upset, wondering why everything was taking so long. I told her I'd sent out the email, and I just wasn't feeling good and I needed a break, and she didn't want a break. She wanted to keep talking, and when I'm in those moods, all I want to do is run. I don't want to talk to anybody. Nothing makes any sense. It's just overwhelming, and I could never explain it before. I never even knew it was happening. I thought I was just fine, and I thought everybody else had problems, and that Beth was just upset because she wanted to keep talking, even though she wasn't mean. I still perceive it to be mean. Even though I talk about it, I feel like, you're attacking me. And Jesus Christ. I even wrote myself an email weeks after this October 4th incident happened. And still, I can't believe I wrote that. I'm like, man, I sound like such a baby, such a crybaby. So no wonder she lost her mind when I ran out the door. I feel like I'm going to redo this video. This is pretty bad. It's 20 minutes long, and I feel like I've missed so much. But maybe it's a good start. Maybe I should just leave my crap here. Ugh, man, that morning was terrible. I told her about Olivia pouring that stuff in the sink, and I kept telling her, I don't want to say anything to Olivia, and she kept asking me, why don't you just tell her to pour it in the basement? Like, what's the problem? And then it started. I'm like, I don't ever say anything right. Everybody always gets upset at me when I say things, so I need you to say it. Oh, and she kept asking, like, why? Like, why are you being like this? Why is it such a big deal? And I didn't know why it was a big deal. I just wanted to get away. I didn't want to talk at all at that point. I felt like I just don't want to talk. So the fact that she kept talking was like she was coming at me, like I did something wrong. She was blaming me. And then I made the mistake of telling her about my dad and his stupid comment. Oh, the driveway's not going to look like a parking lot. I used to have a car, but I had to get rid of it. So she said she wanted to go over and say something to him. Like, man, why are you going to go talk to him? We don't have money for a car right now anyway. She was going to buy me a car because she owed me money for ruining my car and all the trips I went to take with my car to visit her son and all the time they let her use it for work. But even then, the money that she was going to use was a pain in the ass because it was money she got from a settlement for her son. So it wasn't like you could use it for whatever you wanted. So it didn't matter at that time. So I just wanted to drop that too. Like, I hate confrontation, especially with my dad. He was such an ass. I love my dad, but you could never have a normal conversation with him without him getting mad about some ridiculous nonsense or taking the conversation in a totally different direction where you never wanted to go in. So after that, I just, man, no, she told me her daughter said I wasn't happy. And I said it back. I'm like, you're right. I'm not happy, even though that's not true. That wasn't the truth. I have a tendency to just say what other people say and go along with it. When I'm sick, I don't know why. Oh, you don't look good. Yeah, you're right. I don't look good. Like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you say that? I look fantastic. I look better than ever. But if you say it, I just go along with it. Then we ran in the house. We didn't run. We walked into the room. I just got to keep reworking stuff. It's just such a bad perspective, such a bad time. When we went into the dining room, I started grabbing my stuff. I had a backpack. It was all my fishing stuff and poncho and radio and everything I'd have when I went out hiking. And she kept talking to me, asking why I'm being like this. And I couldn't explain. I remember her walking away. Like, I don't understand what's going on. I don't know if she's talking to herself or trying to talk to me, talk sense into me. But nothing she was saying was working. And I could tell it was very maddening for her as well. But I felt she was mad at me. Now that I see it in my head, looking back, that she wasn't mad at me. She was upset with the situation. After that, I went upstairs because I had my pajamas on. I was grabbing my clothes so I could leave. And then she followed me up and locked us, the dogs, in the middle bedroom. And we kept talking. None of this was ever a yelling, screaming match ever, which makes it even more maddening thinking about it now. It must have been even more unbelievable to her. Her daughter was still in the room next door sleeping. But we were in the middle bedroom. I have no idea what she said. Normally, I can hear everything, and even if I try to tune people out, I can't. But when I'm not feeling well, I can just make a humming noise in my head and block everything out. I don't know how long we were upstairs, but when I finally told her, hey, I haven't heard a word you said, I don't care, I just want to leave, she just lost it. She's like, oh, I'm gonna call the cops and say you hit me. She's standing in front of the door. I'm like, I don't care. Just get out of the way, move. I'm leaving, I want nothing to do with you. And then she's like, you know what? I'm never gonna stop. I hope you do kill yourself this time. And I believed it. Even though now I don't believe it. I know she didn't mean that. At that moment, I believed it. I picked my dog up. I told her, get out of the way. And I stopped talking. Normally I'm a chatterbox, and if somebody says something that upsets me, I just won't stop. But that struck deep. I felt like, no. I've tried to kill myself 6 times. Why would you say that? Like, we went downstairs. I tried to grab my backpack. She wouldn't let me grab my backpack. She wouldn't let me grab my headphones. She was very upset because I was done. I seemed like I was done. And I was upset because I thought what she said she meant. And I'm like, I'm not dealing with any of that. Like, it's one thing to just let me go in another room and just let me cool off. But if you say you want me to kill myself, then no. That's when I'm like that. I'm not gonna be. You can't reason with me. It doesn't make any sense. So I don't know if she was trying to videotape what I was doing or trying to call the cops. But I kept flagging my hand in front. I'm like, no, you're not calling the cops. No, you're not forcing me to stay here. Like, I feel like she was trying to keep me to stay. Like, she was trying to keep me there. She didn't want me to leave. But I was just hell bent on leaving. So when I got sick of it, I'm like, no, go ahead. And I just ran. Called the cops. I don't care, but I'm not staying. You're not forcing me to stay here. And then hours later, it took hours for the cops to show up. So I don't know what happened between the time I left and either way, I had to carry my dog forever. It was raining out. I didn't have my poncho. I didn't have my backpack. My dog's all wet. Like, that was absolutely ridiculous. And then the cops come up and said, oh, did you accidentally elbow someone in the face? Which, listen, I'm 6 feet. I was 210 pounds at the time. I was in better shape than I am now. Like, if I got mad and elbowed somebody in the face, that's absolutely ridiculous. And it's just, even now, it's like, I feel like I thought back then. I'm not thinking with reason. Like, I was never mad at her. I just wanted to get away. And even though they were arresting me, I didn't even care. I was just happy to be away from that situation. Everyone's like, oh, you're not mad at her for saying that? Like, I was never mad at her for saying that. I'm not mad at her. I'm not trying to get revenge. The cops were really nice to me. And when they switched me over to the state police, because the courts were, I don't know what happened. I had to wait for someone to come bail me out. They gave me like the nicest wool blanket, and then my neck that had been bothering me for like a year finally popped. I'm like, so how can I be all mad about all this stuff? Like, some positive things came from it. And then afterwards, I got to spend tons of time with my nephew. And then I started to forget like why I ran out, because there was no problems at all. Like the day before this incident occurred. And now that I know exactly what happened and why I was thinking the way I do, like, I'm not going to turn my back on someone and attack them. I might have to redo this story because it's a convoluted mess, but you know what? Oh well. I always tell people, you say something wrong the first time, correct it. When people get mad because it sounds like trash, oh well. Some of my stories sound terrible. So I'm going to keep this long-winded 28-minute video, and if I need to fix it and keep going, I will. Thank you for watching.